further education website at the end. If it's not of a good enough quality, then unfortunately we won't be able to do that. So we have 23 people booked to join us for this, so that's a lot of interest from people in terms of what's happening. And you will be aware that we asked you to tell us what made you interested in coming to this particular session. The sorts of things that we had is several of you are people who are running pilots, and so you have clearly said that you want to join this in order to find out a little bit more about how other pilots are going, and that's really great. Somebody particularly wanting to know about the insights into the pros and cons of residential. People who really want to learn about new approaches to mental health and inclusion as well, and to gain more information that will help them to support their learners and improve their offer. So I think people are looking to gain information from Caroline. I think Caroline, and that's perhaps, I've just arrived at the point where we had a few people who said what they were hoping to do was to share their experiences and their opinions. And I think that's what Caroline's hoping for, is that she acts as a catalyst and a stimulus for you, whether you're a pilot or not, to share some of your experience and your expertise, not only by commenting in this session, but also by offering to do future sessions for us. So I think that's what we're hoping for out of it. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Caroline, and I'm going to pass over control to you, Caroline, now, so that you are now the host, and you're sharing your screen with people now, Caroline. Caroline? That's just the moment to lose somebody, isn't it? Hi, Caroline.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, there's a lot of echo. You might need to turn your volume down slightly.
Okay.
Okay. If people are having problems with the sound or anything, if you put it in the chat while Caroline's talking and showing slides, then I'll try and deal with it. Thank you. Okay, well, off you go, Caroline.
Okay, is that better?
Yep.
Okay, so as I say, greetings from Barnsley in South Yorkshire. It's lovely that so many of you can join us from different parts of the country. My name is Caroline Lees. I'm the Mental Health Coordinator for Great Minds Often Think Differently, which is our BIS pilot here, where we're working with individuals 19 plus that have mild to moderate mental health difficulties, and we're working in a partnership. So the partnership includes Barnsley Adult and Community Learning, Creative Recovery, Northern College, and the Exchange Recovery College and the WEA, and we're working together to see whether short courses can improve the mental health of these individuals. We're talking specifically about a wellbeing retreat that we held in September, and I'm going to talk to you about what it actually involved, the lessons that we learned, and then what we're planning to go on and do in the future. So, appreciating that you're all from different parts of the country, I'm going to introduce sort of the venue. So as you can see from the slide, that rather impressive looking building is Northern College, which is where we held our residential retreat. It's set in lovely grounds of Wentworth Castle, and we take students from all over the country and really specialise in building confidence and showing that short stays of education can actually make a big difference to people's lives. So that's sort of the backdrop of where the residential was held. The learners that we had on the retreat, we had 37 learners, and real diversity in the learners that we had. For example, 8 people had physical health conditions, 3 of which requiring use of our mobility scooters, and we had accessible rooms available. We had 6 people with learning difficulties and disabilities. We had one person of harder hearing and another with speech problems. So a range of accessibility needs that we catered for. And also to note, we also had 7 children that came along with their parents to the retreat. So it was lovely to be able to include them in our on-site children's centre at Northern College. So that it meant that obviously the parents could access the course. So moving on, why did we choose to do a wellbeing retreat? So we wanted to test the residential education side of things for the pilot. We're interested in trying lots of different things as part of this pilot, but having the resource of Northern College, it seemed a really good starting point. So we wanted learners to be able to really immerse themselves in the experience, so that the residential gives you that. The continuing of the education beyond the classroom, there's an awful lot of discussion goes on outside of the classroom where people reflect and talk about things, so that can really be a really big benefit. We understood that some people's environment, we wanted to take them away from the stresses and strains of that and bring them into a positive environment to see what impact that would have. We used our experience. We know that these short interventions of short courses can have a big impact, so we wanted to see how that fitted in with the mental health side of things. And the collaboration, although it was held at Northern College, it really was a partnership. So the planning and the delivery was done by all 5 partners, which was really quite special. We learned from each other. There was some co-production going on as well. So this is the retreat, some pictures there which I'll run through what they are, but just to explain what it is that it contained. So we had 13 different sort of adult education taster sessions that people could choose from, so something for everybody. So just giving you a bit of flavour of different kind of things that were available for them. Condition management courses as well were alongside. Some of those were mandatory where everybody went to, but for example, the 5 ways to wellbeing and the journaling, but the others, you know, were options that people could choose as part of the package. In the evening, we felt it was really important. At Northern College, they do have evening entertainment, but particularly with this group of learners, we wanted to make sure that there were things going on in the evening. We didn't want people feeling that they were back in their rooms and there wasn't things to do. And we wanted the learning to continue and also the social interaction. So we had a relaxation session going on. We had musicians in, craft activities and creative writing. So quite a lot of different things for people to engage with. And technology as part of the pilot. We gave each of the learners an iPad which they kept for the weekend, and that was important because we felt that in the evening they might want to reflect or things might come to them, so they were able to you know, if at midnight they wanted to do something on the iPad, they could. So I don't know if everyone's familiar with the 2 things that we used on the iPads. Padlet and Book Creator are both apps on the iPad. So Padlet is a bit like a notice board where you sort of put post-it notes on there electronically, so people could comment about how things were going or take a picture of something and post it up there, and it was a way of building a bit of a community between the learners. And the Book Creator was for people to be able to catalogue the weekend for themselves and the activities they were doing and the sort of journey they were going through. So that was the technology side of things. So going through the pictures, we've got at the top left, we have archaeology going on there. In the centre, at the top there, we've got the aromatherapy sessions where people were learning how to perform aromatherapy on each other. Top right was gently, strictly, although it turned out not quite as gently because the teacher was fantastic and she assessed them very early on, and it turned out to be the Charleston, so there were arms flying and legs flying, but it was fantastic. Bottom left, we had singing. There were learners going all up the staircase and the acoustics. It was fantastic. centre at the bottom, we've got people getting to grips with their iPads at the beginning of the weekend. And at the bottom right, that was the evening entertainment, and some of the feedback we got back from the learners said there were children involved in that as well. And we wanted to take away that stress and strain from the learners that, in the evening, they need to entertain the children. So we made that accessible for the families as well. And that was something that with feedback we got, they were really appreciative of that. So that was the sort of things that were going on at the retreat. What I'm going to show you now is we asked the learners to give us some feedback about the retreat itself. You may hear a male voice in the background. That's Steve, who's also joined us today on this webinar. He was also a student. So what we asked him to do was gave him a few questions to talk for, things to think about, and they went off in the room and filmed it. And this is the result of it. So I'm just going to play it. It's about 8 minutes long, and then we'll just finish up with a few more comments and see if there's any questions out there.
There might just be a tiny lag while that clicks in. Okay, so if people have got questions or are beginning to get questions, feel free to type those in the chat while Caroline gets this video to work. Is it loading, Caroline? This is that bit where you pray about the technology, isn't it? Okay. We've got lots more people who've joined us. I've got somebody who's MK8343 as their identifier. It'd be really nice if you just tell us who you are so that we can see you there. Nice to see Jill's joined us as well, and Chris, you're now in, so that's great. Okay, your video doesn't seem to be coming through at the moment, Caroline.
Oh, is it not? It's playing here, right.
Okay, can other people see it? Because have you got, I can't see or hear it at the moment.
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Nobody else can see or hear it, Caroline, so I think you're watching that one on your own at the moment.
Okay, right.
So do you want to maybe either describe what it was in the video? Or you can
Yes, yeah, I can do. I have made some notes. So the things that came out of the video, hopefully when we share it later, we'll be able to incorporate those in. What the learners sort of picked up on was the importance of the tutor support and the environment. They felt that really had an impact for them. The peer support, so being amongst people that were going through a similar thing to them, that really shone out, and the support that they got from that. The lifelong interests, so several people talked about things that they tried on the tasters on the retreat that they've gone on to do. So, for example, there was a lady that had enjoyed doing art in the past, and following the retreat had gone out and bought lots of art materials and had taken that on as an interest. There were two ladies that had tried something new, so the aromatherapy, and then they've now arranged to meet up once a month to practice that on each other. And obviously there's the interest and also the social side of that and the impact of that. There was a lady that had enjoyed the mindfulness, and she's been out and bought some CDs and things on that to help her therapeutically. So there were lots and lots of really good stories of people going on to do that. But there was also people wanting to put something back, that they then wanted to go on and help other people that were experiencing the same things. So there are 4 people from the retreat that are actually currently doing a peer mentoring course here at Northern College, with a view of being able to do that and to help people that are experiencing similar difficulties that are sort of now coming to us. So that was something that really shone out from that video. Other lessons that we learned beyond the video, what we asked for was feedback from the learners on the retreat. So pace was something that we learned about as part of that weekend. That actually the learners normally would give learners sort of 15 minutes, 20 minutes break, but actually they wanted longer to reflect. So that's something we've looked at the timetabling going forwards. Also the timetabling, that actually the learners wanted a timetable at the beginning of the weekend that showed them everything they were going to be doing, and we had sort of anticipated that they'd want it to the level that they did, and because of there were things going on in the background that meant that wasn't available at the beginning. That's something that we've learned from that they needed this physical timetable. And the use of technology, the Marmite image is there deliberately. There were people that didn't like the iPad use and the technology side of things. For some people, it caused them some anxiety.
Caroline, could I just interrupt for 1 second? There's a couple of people, Debbie and Maria, who've not muted their microphones, and it's causing terrible problems for the recording. So if you could mute your mics, because I can't mute you, that's lovely. Thank you. Okay. That sounds better. Right. As I say, the use of technology, for some people that was a barrier, and it did cause some anxiety, whether it was the use of it. For some people, the mix of people that we had, some people were working and they felt they wanted to really get away from it, and if they used technology during the week, they didn't want to use it at the weekend. Having said that, there were some people that there was one lady in particular that stories come out this week that she had an iPad at home that she'd never switched on, and really, was really scared of it, and she went home and really engaged with it, and is really using it. Another lady has booked onto an IT course following it because she enjoyed the IT. So it was one of those just to be wary of, that we didn't want to put something in there that might create some anxieties. So to use sparingly, I think, or do you really consider the group? Other lessons that we learnt was the following upon paperwork. Because of the way the paperwork happens, there has to be a 2-week gap between the mental health assessments and surveys at the beginning and after the course. And with it being a 3-day residential course, that then meant we were having to get learners that had already left us to fill in the paperwork, and that's caused some issues with trying to get the paperwork back. So that's something that we've learned as well. But on a positive note, from the lessons and feedback that we've had, it really has helped us inform what we're going to do going forwards. The general interest areas that people are interested in, what works, the top-up sessions, because the people that go on courses are then eligible to come to top-up sessions, which we're running approximately once a month at the moment. And so we're taking the feedback from what the learners want to do to inform our planning for those. And obviously the timetabling things that came out of that. So I'm just going to pause now and see if anyone's got any questions about the retreat itself before I move on to the next part.
Can we ask questions over the phone, Katina?
Yes, you certainly can, yes.
Oh, brilliant. Hello, Christine. It's Liz here from Biz. I was interested to know, I would be interested to know whether some people who came on the retreat are planning to connect with one another now in a kind of informal way, through Skype or just on the telephone or whatever, in order to kind of keep up the benefits and talk about how they're doing afterwards. It's a kind of top-up, I suppose, but not organised by you guys, but, by people informally amongst themselves. Was there any of that?
I have been made aware of certain individuals that have made friendships that are arranging things like that, not particularly as a big group necessarily, but there are individuals that have made contact and are, there is the peer support going on, beyond. The thing is capturing that. It's one of those things that we aren't currently asking, but I do know of a few informal stories that people have told me where that is certainly happening. So that's another aspect that perhaps we ought to look at capturing.
It would be really interesting as well to introduce them, those that are interested, to Skype, because it's free, it's easy, you can see somebody's face, you can do it, it's just a very cheap way of helping people keep in contact. So,
it is. There is obviously the assumption people have technology, and some do, some don't. So it's for those that do, yes, I can see it. In a way, I would worry that it might be, exclude people if those, they can't interact that way because they haven't got Skype. But certainly there's certainly a real, the people that come into the top-ups, there is a real sort of community happening, and particularly the message of wanting to put something back is quite strong, and wanting to help other people now going forwards and engaging people in education. So that's been really interesting and nice to see.
Fantastic. Mental health volunteers, in fact.
Indeed.
Yeah, we've got community learning champions, and there's digital champions and older people's champions. There's a gap there, isn't there? That's quite interesting.
There certainly is, yeah. Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Liz. Anybody else? Any questions?
There's one in the chat for you, Caroline, which is from Tom, and says, do you know if anyone has used the Padlet page after the event to communicate and feedback?
Not that I've seen, but to be fair, I haven't. I did look shortly after the retreat, and it updated with some more photos that I'd taken. I don't know that people are. That's certainly something we could look at building on, you know, with the top-ups and things that we're doing, and look to expand it even further. But I must admit I haven't looked, so I couldn't say. But from the learners I've spoken to, nobody's mentioned it.
Caroline, can you hear me?
Oh, I can, Tom. Hello.
Are there any lessons to be learned from the way that the technology was used on the Friday?
I think pacing-wise, I think perhaps, I think it was explained. I mean, I wasn't in the session, but I think it was explained that people didn't have to use the technology. But again, I think people wanted to, perhaps, or felt that they should because they felt they were missing out, or So yes, I think it's important that the choice is made very clearly there, and perhaps looking at the timing of making sure maybe more resources or more time allowed for people to really get to grips with the iPads potentially. But I think it's potentially one of those things that people either like or don't like. But there's definitely things you can do to help people engage more, I think. Anything else?
No, there's nothing else in the chat, Caroline.
Nothing else? Lovely. So I shall continue. Okay, so I know some people that are joining us are from other pilots. I'm just going to talk briefly about the mental health assessments that we perform for those of you that aren't part of the pilot system. So the surveys that we ask the learners to complete to look at their current mental health, they're self-reported, so the learners are answering certain questions themselves, but they are used by clinicians. And there are 3 things that were incorporated on that survey. So there was PHQ-9, which is a level of depression, a way of assessing depression levels. GAD-7, which again is a way of assessing anxiety levels. And Short Webs, which is sort of a general mental wellbeing scoring system. And the people that we're asked to work with are the mild to moderate anxiety depression levels. I'm going to talk a bit later on about severe people that were coming out with severe anxiety and depression when they completed their assessments. Okay, so what we're going to go through now are the results from the retreat. So the first graph that
sorry, before you do that, I couldn't just raise a question that's popped up in the chat, because otherwise...
Yeah, of course you can.
Maria has asked if you've covered how you recruited your learners to this retreat.
Okay, no, I haven't. No, I haven't covered how I did the recruitment. All sorts of ways, really. We just dealt with lots of organisations and talked to them, sent lots of flyers out, advertised pretty much anywhere that we could, really, and got people from all sorts of areas. We talked to people in occupational health departments. They came from really wide areas, but yeah, we just tried to spread it as widely as we could. Friends, referring friends, all sorts of different avenues.
And I remember you had people from, because your pilot's based in Barnsley, but I remember meeting a lady from Doncaster, and I remember meeting another lady who was either from Scarborough or Scunthorpe. So you were able to open it up kind of widely, weren't you, to people?
Really, yeah. And I think the residential obviously helped for that. We could open it really widely. And yeah, through Facebook, we use digital media as well, Twitter. So we sent the message out. We did get people from all sorts of neighbouring areas as well that engaged, which was lovely.
And do I remember a pop-up cafe in the summer?
Oh, sorry, yes, we did. We had a pop-up cafe as well. So that was in the town centre, so that people could come in and talk to us about what was on offer. So we did do that as well, which is something we are going to be continuing now that we've set our future programme. Okay, so I'm going to go now on to the results of the mental health assessments that we did. Now I'll just explain the graph to start with. The letters at the bottom are just individuals, just to normalise those. We've got the blue line, which is showing the mental health score before, and the red line showing, sorry, the depression score before, and the red line showing the depression score for each individual afterwards. Obviously this is just raw data, and it obviously needs analysing to see how significant the changes are. But as you can see, there are, by looking at the graph, it would appear that for a lot of people they're reporting significant improvements in the depression levels. There are 2 points at the end. We didn't expect it to work for everybody, but there were particular reasons. I had a look at that anomaly to see if there were any particular reasons for those individuals. And I found that one of them had a physical disability and was struggling very much so over the weekend, and we were very lucky that they managed to stay for the full weekend. So I think potentially that had an impact. And for the person whose depression actually worsened, they got a phone call over the weekend to say that a close family member had actually passed away. So again, they stayed with us, but that could well, for the 2 weeks after the retreat, when they had the funeral and things, I think there is potentially a reason for why their score it stands at what it does. For the anxiety levels, as you can see, the blue line again shows the before and the red shows the after. So that's 100% of learners saying that their anxiety levels had reduced. Okay, so the conclusions that we've drawn from that, and as I was treating this with caution, and this is purely on the residential, the raw data, but depression levels are showing on average they're halved, anxiety levels more than halved, and 9 individuals no longer reporting the diagnosable anxiety or depression. So on that basis, what we're saying is that they scored 4 or less on the GAD-7 and the PHQ-9. And there's just a graph there showing that. So you've got the blue line showing the depression levels and the red line showing the anxiety levels. But as I say, would stress this is raw data and obviously needs to be interpreted, but it is quite encouraging at this stage that we are seeing some differences in the levels that we've had. Okay, so I have another video clip. I will try and see whether it works for you, and I'll talk to you about that as well. So this was a video clip about learners' feedback about the residential.
Caroline, do you have the video on your desktop rather than in a slide?
Yes,
because it will probably show from your desktop.
Okay.
Close the slide presentation down and try and play it straight from your desktop. I think you'll find it will probably work. It's the way in which slides require you to right click, etc. And if meanwhile anybody's got any questions, pop them into the chat. If it won't, then move on, or you might try right clicking that residential education link and see if that will work for you. Just right click.
It looks like you're trying. Looks like you're trying to play it on the network.
Yeah. Okay. So we think it's probably the network. So just carry on, I think.
Okay. Okay. So video feedback from that residential, things that came out of that was that they felt that it was good that they'd had the residential side because they didn't have the travel concerns, so travelling in and out from courses, and they felt that might have been a barrier for motivation to have to keep coming back in, and that some people might have fallen by the wayside by having to keep coming backwards and forwards. They felt that leaving their everyday lives behind and being able to concentrate on what they were here for really helped. So that was what we'd anticipated and hoped for, that they'd immerse themselves in the experience. They found that reflecting in the environment really helped, and the social networks, the social aspect side of things, and the pushing themselves to actually go on a residential was something that came out of that as well, that for some individuals it was a real goal and an achievement to have done that. And there was a particular story that's come out this week where a lady was intending to go on holiday, but her anxiety levels were such that she kept having several discussions with her doctor about the fact that she didn't feel able to do that. And it was a real sort of battle for her, but she pushed herself to come on the retreat, and that being able to do that then meant she could go on her holiday. And then she's then thrived from that. She's now signed up for courses and things, so it's really been a starting point from it really to take off from, which has been really nice to see. So that's sort of the feedback we got from the residential. They really did find it was important, and hopefully we'll find a way of sharing those video clips with you, so you can hear it sort of from the horse's mouth. So going forwards,
Caroline.
yes. Oh, thought someone was saying something there. Okay, so the different approaches, what we're looking for going forwards with the project is that we've arranged 40 general interest courses. So we've taken into account the feedback we've had from the retreat and use that to inform our decisions. So as you can see, they're being delivered by all the different partners, and we're paying to people's strengths. And it's been interesting because some of the partners have brought in new courses, well, most of the courses are new, but really looking at what works best for people with mental health difficulties. So, for example, the WEA are doing the dance to feel good, which is something they haven't looked at before. And we're at Northern College Creative Media, which is really exciting because we've got a new tutor that specialises in media studies, and they're going to look at the stigma and the mental health awareness out there and the media campaign, and create their own media campaign, which we're hoping that through the links that they've got, be able to go in through radio stations and things and get that out there. So that's quite an exciting thing for us. So they're the sort of general interest things that we're doing. We've also got condition management courses, which we're playing to the strength of the Exchange Recovery College for those. So we're using people's specialisms for those areas as well. And then as we're a pilot, we're wanting to try lots of different things and really look to see what makes a difference. So we're looking at community-based learning, so not necessarily expecting people always to come to us. We're looking at resource centres and a lot of the deliveries going on in communities. We've been contacted by quite a lot of groups, be that homeless groups, refuges, and children's centres, all sorts of different, where they have groups of people that are experiencing mental health difficulties. We're looking at what we can do to outreach to groups. We are also looking at specific courses for particular kinds of groups. So, for example, learning difficulties and disabilities rather than difficulties. All our courses will be accessible to everybody. I should make that point. That's something we're really one of our values that feels really important. But we have identified that there are particular groups where issues are quite specific for them, and through the work with partners that work specifically with learning disabilities, there's some certain themes that affect their mental health, for example, relationships. So we are looking at putting on bespoke courses specifically for individuals with learning disabilities to sort of cater for their needs and issues that affect their mental health. The project going forwards in the sort of the bigger picture. I'm going to talk to you now about we asked the learners, I'm not going to attempt to try the video clip this time, but we asked the learners about what they felt about the project and whether it was important. And the themes that came out of that was that, interestingly, the learners made the connection themselves about the cost benefits to the government and the NHS, and in the fact that, you know, they're going to get better through education. They might not need the NHS services or medication. So that was really quite interesting that the learners were coming out about those things themselves. The impact on families and their networks, and actually the improvements and how it affected, you know, the wider community around them. Changes in themselves, they were quite surprised at how quickly they felt that change, and they could really see it in each other, and they could pick out individuals that they said, crikey, that person's come on a really long way in just that weekend. And that was really interesting, that they could see those tangible changes in their well-being and their confidence levels, and the motivation and what they were going to go on to do, and the social aspects and the peer support, that was really strong as well. So generally, as a pilot, what we've found is the importance of peer support. And although you would get peer support in a mainstream group, what we found is that there was something about the fact that they felt that people around them understood, that they were sharing a similar experience, and actually that was a real driving force for them and made a difference. So that would sort of suggest that these courses for people that are experiencing mental health difficulties, you know, they do need to be specific for them, and that peer support was a real benefit. The other thing is that, you know, after the course, we're looking at progression opportunities, and it is important that it sits alongside mainstream education, so that we've got suitable referral opportunities for them to go on and progress, and go and get qualifications. Obviously, the courses that we're running are not accredited courses. They're the non-threatening way of getting back into education, but from that, it's then giving people the confidence to go on into these accredited courses, which will help their employability, and all sorts of aspects of their lives. So it's really important that we've still got those. I know there's a lot of further education colleges and things that are concerned about potentials of cuts, and obviously that's something that we really need to make sure that we've got those opportunities to refer. The moderate to severe, yes. Now, you know, the pilot is aimed at mild to moderate anxiety and depression. There were a few, I think you might have spotted on the graph, there were a few people that would have been classed as having moderate to severe anxiety and depression. We made discretionary reviews on those, depending on the situation. There were people that had specific things going on in their lives that actually we felt that the retreat would benefit them. Particularly, there's one that stands out is a lady that's caring for elderly parents, and one of which is experiencing dementia, and she was finding that was affecting her mental health significantly. And so we allowed her to come on to the retreat, and her mental health improved significantly, and 2 weeks later was still showing us significantly, because she got out of the situation for the weekend, and obviously she's then got to go back to it, but she got tools to help her, and she'd learned things around wellbeing that would enable her to manage that situation differently. So what we were interested in, and actually, you know, that was somebody that was exhibiting moderate to severe, was actually it can make a difference for that group of people. So it might be something we're quite interested in. It would be great to be able to do, is to run a similar kind of project for people in that group. Reluctance to mix the group too much generally going forwards, because I know there's been a lot of feedback from other pilots or beyond that actually it can be counterproductive. People with mild to moderate, hopefully this intervention might be the difference. And as we've seen with those 9 people in the stats earlier, you know, they're no longer exhibiting those symptoms, and hopefully that's because of the intervention. But when they're mixed groups of people that have gone through the services and had long enduring, it might be that their experiences of telling people to go into counselling or go people into medication, it might take people on a different journey. So there's that sort of caution around mixing the groups. Impact later down the line, the concern that we've got is that we've performed the mental health assessments and the surveys that ask the questions around have they signed up to another course, are they accessing services less, have the medication changed, and for this course it was only 2 weeks after the intervention, but a lot of the stories, we're getting some fantastic stories of, you know, people that it has made a difference to them, but it's after the 2 weeks, and it's how we capture that. You know, there's particularly a lady that's said that after the retreat she felt so much better, she went and saw her GP and had a chat about how she was feeling, and they've stopped the medication, but that's after the 2 weeks, so that wouldn't get captured. So definitely, you know, we'd like to be able to try and capture the information going forwards. For a lot of people it's a journey, and although they come on this non-threatening sort of course initially as part of the pilot, you know, it might be later down the line when they do other courses that they would never have done had they not been on the pilot, that you really see a dramatic change in them, and it be, you know, I'm worried that that information might get lost somewhere, and also that it's a short pilot, and we can see the difference it's making, but it's will there be sufficient evidence really to see that social return on investment. So we'd really like it, you know, to continue in a longer study so that we can really see the impact on the NHS and on work, you know, people out of work benefits and, you know, and going into work and paying national insurance and tax, but also people that are off work unwell and going back into work. It'd be great to be able to capture that stuff to see what sort of economic difference something like this would have, so we'd like the project to be longer. That's me done. I don't know if we can open it up again now for any questions.
I've got a question, if I may. Liz again from B.
Hello, Liz.
Hiya. One of my questions is going to be about longer term impact, and the first question is, do you have contact details for them so that you could follow up, say, you know, in a month or so, even if it's kind of in an informal way?
Oh, absolutely.
So it might be worth doing.
Yeah, and that's something we were hoping to do, but that isn't channeled through official channels. As far as, you know, when they're looking at all the data, that's not captured. So the fear for us is if somebody looked at the project and said, oh, you know, how much difference has it made? You're losing a huge amount of information there that might make a difference. If people are making decisions about the impact, they're not getting the full picture.
Yes, but I think if you wanted to do that, we could certainly take it into account as a story for your provision, for example,
yes.
Which we're always looking around for. So if you think it's a good idea, I wouldn't hold back from doing it, from following up. Do you agree, Katina?
I think, I mean, the bit I wanted to add there, really, without taking the screen off at the moment, is that's kind of your part of the evaluation, really. So that's for you to do at some level. And then that's what your project page is about on the MHFE website. It's about you sharing the other qualitative information about your workforce development and about your learners, really to give us also indicators. So if you're picking up things, and I know that some other pilots have worked quite hard on some of their outcome measures, the idea of us information, but if there is, you know, a year 2, for example, of what we could look at to pick that up. I know that you blog quite a bit and you complete your page, so you know, it is about looking at that, maybe discussing with other pilots what, you know, measures they're doing as well, and then trying to kind of, you know, both collect that and share it on that website page. One of the ways that we get qualitative information up from you as pilots, really. So it's absolutely critical that doesn't just get left to the end and isn't just seen as, oh, I'll just put down a final report here or something.
Yeah. It's that making sure that it's not just the, you know, the data, the result, you know, the scores or whatever after that short period, because, you know, if that's all that was taken into account, you know, you'd lose a lot of the benefits that are happening. So that's great, yeah.
We might, but
certainly
of
will
course,
do that.
if we don't capture those first ones, we won't get a chance to do the second one. So that's
Exactly.
another important message.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I had one other question as well, which was I was talking to the lead family learning coordinator. Sorry, there's a very loud video conference going on next door. Can you hear that voice in the background?
Oh yes, but you're fine. I can still hear you clearly.
Okay, I'm trying to put my my hand around the receiver so you don't pick up the others. I was talking to the family learning coordinator in Birmingham earlier this week, and she was talking about the huge amount of stress and anxiety there is in Birmingham among second language speaking, basically ESOL students who are coming to family learning classes and are very, very anxious about all the issues around the prevent agenda. They're worried about their teenage boys in particular. And I just wondered whether anybody in your kind of partnership is doing anything around mental health in families, because I think it's a really, all stages of family life are really wonderful and very challenging as well for parents. I just wonder whether anybody's doing anything in the family learning context or the refugee context as well, which is quite ripe for mental health problems, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, certainly as far as family learning, Northern College has, we do have a provision for families, but also we are working closely with children's centres. For the retreat, we had referrals through from that, and it is something we're looking at. And one of the groups that we're looking at that have asked for outreach, is that area. So it is certainly, we're looking at all the different sort of minority areas, particularly different communities that we've got in our areas.
Patch.
Make sure that we do capture as many as we can, everybody potentially. We want to make sure that we do provide provision for everybody. So it is certainly something we're actively looking at.
Caroline, we've got 4 or 5 other pilots at least that I can see in here. So I don't know if any of them want to chip in with what they're doing around ESOL and family learning, maybe.
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
Matt's just joined us from Derby. Maria's here as well. I'm seeing other people that have joined from other pilots. Debbie Poole-Hunt's here from Luton, where I'm guessing ESOL classes and family learning might be an issue locally for that as well. Just unmute your, having told you all to mute your microphones, I'm now saying one at a time maybe. Just unmute your microphone so that you can join the conversation.
Hello, it's Matt here. We're fortunate in that some of our centres have creches attached to them, which can be used. We're unfortunate in that ESOL has been slashed recently, and we're actively trying to recruit peer mentors who have different languages. Some of the feedback that's particularly relevant so far for the family learning is not to schedule sessions in the morning or the afternoon, but actually in that window between dropping the kids off and collecting them. Which it seems pretty obvious, but it's something that we hadn't considered about parents who have those commitments to, and so a much restricted time frame for when they can access learning.
That's great. Matt, do you want to just say which pilot you're from?
Oh, sorry, it's Derby. We've been looking in terms of minority groups, I suppose. We were looking at carers, but there's separately been funded a huge carers wellbeing initiative, which involves a lot of training. So we're not going to tread on their toes, but we might do some work with them. And the other area that we kind of we've had a lot of demand from is actually colleagues of mine at the city council who are facing major organisational change. So can we run stuff as almost in-house training? And I've said, well, yes, as long as the people meet the criteria. And it's a bit tricky because people obviously there's still a degree of stigma about admitting to mental health problems at work. You might have to phrase it as coping with change or resilience, or one of those other buzzwords which are more acceptable for continuing professional development.
Matt, if you wanted to, the other person who's looking at something similar is Mary Moss at the Manchester project, so you could talk to her. And she's picking up with her Union Learn person. Dave Eva, nationally, has been really keen to work with the pilots. And if the unions are involved, then some of that kind of stigma goes, because it kind of feels as if it's a very different activity. So if you want us to put you in touch with Dave and then your regional person, we can do that. Or talk to Mary. I think she's thinking about doing something in the new year, so you could perhaps hook up with her. It'd be quite nice.
Yeah, that'd be ace. Thank you. Please do.
And we've got something in the chat from Maria, who's at the Redcar pilot, and she says that Redcar are struggling to meet their ESOL quotas, so they're not doing anything specific at the moment, but you are working with the children's centres and with new mums at the moment. So anybody else from Debbie Paul Hunt has now come in from Luton, who says that although ESOL funding has been cut, we have realigned our allocations to continue to meet the needs of local people here in Luton, and your family learning team work incredibly closely with the children's centres. And then Debbie, is that with your pilot as well, or does your pilot have another focus? Matt's just also said they're presenting at children's centres to promote the course. Caroline, have you got anything else that you wanted to add? We've got 5 minutes left of your session.
I just think it would be really valuable if we could find a way to get those video clips out, because I think it would be really...
We can get the videos to people, but I think, but you were busy, so I didn't want to interrupt you too much. The problem I had is that I've got the videos, but they're numbered, so I didn't know how they related to what you'd put on your slide presentation. So right. I think that I can show one of them now, and I'm just going to give it a one-off try, but it means I need to claim the host back from you. So I'm just
no problem
from you. And oops, if it will allow me to do that. For the first time ever, it looks like it's not going to allow me to claim the host. Can you make me the host, Caroline, from where you are? Just right click my name and say make the host. Has it allowed you to do that?
It's saying you are the host, yeah.
Okay, so let's see if I can share my screen then. And you tell me if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Be able to hear it. So we're not sure whether you're going to see picture in proper time and sound. So this is a bit of an experiment for everybody all at once to type in the chat and tell me how this is going. Is that all right?
That's good. Just need to move it to the left.
No, it's a bit quiet, Katina. I don't know if we can turn the volume.
Family life, and then worrying that that's got something else has got to be done. You leave that behind, and you haven't got to worry about when you've got to actually get back and you don't the next one. Yeah, so you can leave all that behind and concentrate on what you can do. Yeah. That's why the residential is so good. There's quite a few people. If you're having to drive somewhere, you take them to the train vehicle, and these can be quite overwhelming and tiring. So you know, you then had to drive back home on the same day, and then you know come back the next day. You might not have to make it because it's so tiring. take everything in again, you know, rather than having to try and rush and do things. You know, it's just a time to, you know, maybe push yourself a little bit as well, because it's easy sometimes to
The residential aspect was brilliant because it allows us to get involved with people in the formal environment of the classroom and the less formal environment of the bar, the restrooms, the common room, the games room. Generally walking around the site when the weather's good, it allows you to just chill and relax. But more importantly, from my point of view, it'd be quite a journey every day for me to get to and from here. That would make it really difficult to attend.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to stop sharing there, but at least we can see that they kind of work, and if people have got any comments or questions about those, and then we can make the rest available on the MHFE website alongside the recording. Now, I did mute everybody, so you'll need to unmute yourself, but somebody was typing furiously through it, and the typing was coming through really loud. So apologies for muting everybody, but if you take your mute off or type in the chat and you have any questions or comments, but you can see they're quite good quality videos, so it'd be good to get them to you.
Yeah, hello. It was a little jerky on my iPad. I don't know if it's because it's an iPad.
I don't know how to tell you this, Steve, but you're jerky at the moment as well. So I think it might be your signal. Where are you?
I'm in Heckmondwike. It's a very jerky place.
So I think it might be your signal. And obviously all of this always depends on the quality of the Wi-Fi. That's the trouble.
Yeah, everything else is okay. Caroline came across not jerky at all. You're not jerky.
and you were one of our cameramen, weren't you, at this?
Yes.
That's great. Thank you, Steve. Okay, anybody else got any questions or comments they want to make? Caroline, any final words if you want to unmute yourself?
No, I don't think so. If anyone's got any questions, they can obviously contact me through the MHFE website, and we'll make sure that those video clips go up because they are quite nice to watch, to see, you know, the things that have come out of that for the learners. So we'll make sure they're out there, so people can look at them later.
Maybe we could persuade you to blog about this experience.
Oh, yeah, definitely will.
The blog for people, and they can follow you on Twitter, can't they, as well? And I'm sure you'll be tweeting about this afterwards. So, what is your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is Caroline LD Lees, so you can find me on there. But yes, contact me if anyone's got any questions or queries going forward. If anyone thinks of anything later on.
Okay, that's great. And Liz, any final words from you at all? Put you on the spot. I think she might have gone. Okay, anybody else got any final comments? Otherwise, we're going to close this session. But really to say thank you to you, Caroline, for being, you know, you're the first of the pilots that's offered to do one of these. And what I'm hoping now is that pilots will just flood in terms of saying we'd like to share, or, you know, maybe 2 or 3 would like to say we want to share this aspect because we're doing family learning or we're working with ESOL groups or something. But I really think it's time for us to begin to share with each other and discuss this practice.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'm meeting next week with Sheffield and Kurt Lees, so it'll be really interesting to see, compare notes and see how we're getting on and how we can possibly share information and work together. So that could be really positive, I hope.
Okay.
Can I say, Katina and everyone, that we're very, very proud to host this project, and we hope that there may be additional funding to allow it to continue. Many thanks to everybody who's supporting it.
Thank you, Jane. That's wonderful. Okay, thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now and say goodbye to everybody. So I'll click end meeting and then it all disappears. Anybody who is coming to the one where I'm showing you the kind of new website off afterwards, just go out and come in again, all right? But thank you very much indeed, everybody, for coming.